Let's go over the rest of this Minuet by Mozart. In class, we analyzed the chords for the first section, and now we're going to do this here. Each of these boxes represents an area where there's a chord. And you look at all the notes in the box and you decide, well, what kind of chord is that? And then we look at the key that we're in, the scale that we're using. In this case, although we started in F major, we're in G minor for this little section right here. You don't have to understand the why of that yet. That's a second year topic maybe, or we can talk about it later. But your job is in the context of G minor to figure out these chords. Now, as a student, unless G minor is like really solidly rooted in your head, you might just write it out, right? So I'm just gonna like put it over here. G minor is G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat. And then F sharp, probably because of the harmonic minor scale. And we're going to label these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Don't worry about the subtonic chord. And then even on top of that, you should be able to think, well, what are the normal qualities of the chords here, right? I'll just put triads right now. 1 is minor, 2 is diminished, right? 3 is major. These are Roman numerals, uppercase for major, lowercase for minor, lowercase plus the little dot right there, degree sign for diminished. C is the 4 chord, it's minor. 5 chord is major usually because of this alteration. 6 chord like that, and the 7 chord is diminished like that. Okay, we can refer to that. So I'm just going to start here again because we kind of rushed through it in class. When I look at this, I'm going to write these out. We've got an F sharp and a C and an E flat and an A right there and another A. And in your head, you should be going, well, is it an F sharp chord? That would be F sharp, A, C, and E flat would be the 7th. That seems good. But if not, you could rotate through. Is it a C chord, C, E, G, B? No. Is it an E chord, E, G, B? Nope. Is it an A chord, A, C, E? Looking good, but then the next note up, A, C, E, G, and that's not right. I think it's an F sharp chord. And F sharp and then A and C makes a diminished triad, and F sharp up to E is a diminished 7th, right? F up to E would be major, F sharp up to E would be minor, and then F sharp up to E flat would be diminished. It's shrunk twice. So a diminished triad and a diminished 7th is a fully diminished 7 chord, and the only place we find that is right there on the 7th scale degree. So this is in the key of G minor, a 7 diminished 7 chord. I'm not worrying about inversions or anything right now. Okay. Then here, well, we have a G. Remember we're on bass clef, right? A G and a B flat. Don't forget the key signature. Okay. And then a G, right? And a D up here. It's a GBD chord. GB flat D, that's the first scale degree. It's a 1. It's a minor chord. You write a minor 1 right there. So you can either go by spelling and get the spelling and go, aha, I know what this chord is, or you go by the qualities of the chord that you should know for each scale degree, right? Okay, this one's a big fat mess of notes here. I've got a C and a D and another D and an A and a C and an F sharp. Well, don't be fooled here. You might go, oh, it's another F sharp chord because F sharp A C, but it should be F sharp A C E something, right? E flat, and there's a D there that's different. This is a D F sharp A chord with a C on top, or a D triad plus a C 7th, a D major triad plus a C 7th. Well, that's a dominant 7 chord, and that's on the 5th scale degree right there. So we go 5, and we put a 7 on there to remind us it's got a 7 and it's not a triad. Okay. Here, this parenthesis note is not part of the chord. You're given that information. Later on, you'll know these contexts better, and you'll be able to see that without help, just like you won't need a box around where to look at. But we're focusing on this aspect of it, and this is another difficulty layer we don't want to have to deal with. G, G, D, G. All right, it's not enough notes to make a complete triad, but it's a G chord. You're in the key of G, and you get to a cadence point right here, and there's a bunch of G's and D's and stuff like that. It sounds like a G minor chord, albeit incomplete in our head. It's also the 1 chord in the key, and we know that we like 1s and 5 chords, right? So it's a 1 chord, even though it's incomplete, right? We did this thing in class today where I said, hey, what am I drawing right here? And you guys said, oh, it's an elephant. And I said, well, it doesn't have any tusks yet. but it looks like an elephant, or it's going to be an elephant, right? Similarly, you can say, well, it's a G chord. It doesn't have everything there right now, but it's a G chord. All right, on the next line, music has changed back to the key of F. Music will do this in the classical period, where it will start in one key at the beginning, and then it'll go away to a different key and then wind its way back. Here, we're in the key of F. At least that's what I told you to look at. So we'll go with that. The notes here are, well, my F scale's up there. I'm going to put it in here for a reference for you, right? So I'm just going to put it right down here. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, and E. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in a major key, this is a major 1 and a minor 2 and a minor 3 and a major 4 and a major 5 triads, right? And a minor 6 and a diminished 7. And if we get to sevenths on these things, that'll be a half diminished and that'll be a dominant. These two will be major sevenths, but let's just go with it right here. I have an E, I have a B flat, again, don't forget the key signature, and a D, and a G. Now don't be fooled. You might think, oh, it's a G chord, GBD, right? But that would be GBDF for the seventh or extra note, and that's an E, not an F. So it's really an EGBD. That's the chord right there. So EGB, right? EGB, right? Would be minor, but B flat makes it diminished, right? That matches up with our 7 chord right there, is diminished. And then if you add the D on top, you have a diminished triad plus a minor 7th, and that is a half diminished chord. So here we have the 7 half diminished. And you just make a degree sign and you slash through it like that. Okay? If we were in minor, it would be fully diminished. If we're in major, it's going to be half diminished. And then here we have an F and an A and a C and an F, and we've done these before and we've seen them before. That's an FAC, what's our 1 chord right there, like that. Okay? Let's take a look at this one right here. We got a bunch of notes. We got a B flat and a C and another C, and we have a G and another B flat and an E, right? Don't be fooled, it's not an E chord, E, G, B flat. Looks like that's a triad, but then it should be E, G, B, D, like this. That doesn't work. It's E, G, B, C, so it's not an E chord. Let's try the other ones. G, B, D, nope. B flat or B, D, F, nope. C, C, E, G, B, my 7th. This is a C chord right here, okay? And it makes sense because it's a 5 chord, right? 5 chord. We want to see lots of 1s and 5s. You don't know this, but 7s are substitutes for 5s. And so they're sort of doing a pseudo 5 job too. So this whole thing has been 1s and 5s, really. And then it's got a 7th on it, right? The B flat. So we don't want to leave it as a triad. We'll put the 7th right there. So it reminds us that this chord here, while it has a major triad, has a 7th on it as well. All right, here we have a similar figure that we had here. Non-chord tone, F, F, C, F, right? It's not complete, but it's my 1 chord. It's my F chord. I'm in the key of F, right? And it looks like we're going to do kind of similar things again here. This is the same as up at the top right there, right? Which was an F chord. And it's got the same note as well. It's just missing the low F to begin with. So, but there's another F there. So that's a 1 chord, right? Major, of course, right? Because major key. And this is a B flat and a B flat, or D, sorry, and an F and some more B flats. And so B flat, D, F, that's a major triad. That's my 4th scale degree. You can double check it down here, and you should on the test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 chord, B flat, D, F, and it's major 4. So, right? Okay. And then over to here, well, it looks like we have a C and an A and a C and an F. So F, A, C, it's a 1 chord. Later, you'll learn that this is a specific use of the 1 chord where the 5th is in the bass. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And then here we have a C and an E. We talked about this in class earlier because we had a similar thing happen in other places, right? Not all the chords are there. But if you look at this, you could go, well, is this a C, E, G chord or is this an A, C, E chord? And the answer is it's a C chord because that's your 5 chord right there, right? There's nothing in here that would suggest anything else. You'd have heard the A or something really prominently in context of this. Otherwise, it just sounds like the 5 chord, okay? And it is because 1 will go to 5. And then here we have an interesting thing. In fact, I think I mentioned in class that if you have 2 notes unless you've got a reason not to presume one is the root and one is the third, and the missing chord is, or note is the 5. Here we have a non-chord tone and a D, and it goes up to the F, which is a chord tone. So we have a similar conundrum, D and F. This is probably a DFA chord, right? Right there. It's probably not a B flat D F, because how would we know? We haven't heard a B flat for a long time, and other notes that confuse against it. Also, you learn that there's a pattern of 5 going to 6 at cadences called the deceptive progression or deceptive cadence. But this is a 6, and DFA is a minor chord, right? And that matches up there. And then this here is the same as that. I'm just going to get out of the way here and put them right there. 1, this is the same as that. It's no shame or sin seeing repetitions and patterns in music. You don't have to spell everything from scratch. This one here is very similar to that one there. So that's a 1 chord. And then here is the same thing as that right there, right? So that's my 5 chord. And then this is the same thing as that right there, my 1, incomplete as it is right there. And that's how we do it. To review, when you're doing analysis like this, and at the beginning I'll show you where the chords are, and I'll show you what are not part of the chord and stuff like that, like this right here, where, like there, right? I would write out the scale for the key that I'm in. I would number the numbers, and then I would put in the quality of chords that each one represents on the scale degree. And then as I figure it out, I go back and I double check. Because as a student, you're still struggling with some aspects of reading the notes, and you're still struggling with some aspects of spelling the chords, and you're still thinking about some aspects of doing the scale, and you throw all those minor uncertainties together and it becomes complicated. So try and get as much out of your head and correctly written down on your page in these early days of doing analysis. Your unit test will have something similar to this on it. Okay? All right.